Hey, all you beautiful bastards or whatever. Welcome to episode 6 of Living on the Edge, the On Comics Ground Spider-Man podcast. I am your host. I am Alec. I am a staff writer at On Comics Ground. Well, senior staff writer, I guess, if you want to be technical. And if I want to toot my own horn. Sorry, I just spilled water on myself. Yeah, so I'm a senior staff writer at On Comics Ground. I write reviews for all the Spider-Man and Venom comics. You can follow On Comics Ground, which is at On Comics Ground on Twitter, and you can like our Facebook page, and you can go to the website and read all of our articles and reviews. We got some really good ones. I can't think of any to plug right now. Oh, what were you going to say?
Sorry, yeah. Also, we've got our, if you're listening to this, you're clearly on YouTube, so you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, throw us a like down below and a comment, maybe.
Yeah, do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing finger guns, but you can't see because I'm not on a camera. Not yet, anyway. Yeah, so that's me, your boy. And then to my not right or left, because you're on my computer screen, Ian. Say hi, Ian.
Hey, everybody. It's the Great Interrupter. Ian Cameron. I'm the co-host here on Living on the Edge. I'm also a senior staff writer on Comics Ground. You can find me personally on Twitter at CalLData or on Instagram, though I admit I'm not on there anywhere near as often as I probably should be, at iMan Cameron.
Yeah, I'm not on Instagram much either. I used to be obsessed with it, like in 2014, and now I'm not. It's yeah, but
the thing is, I'm just not good at doing selfie stuff, and like the idea of taking pictures of food doesn't crop up to me, occur to me very often.
Like I don't get people who do that. You just well, like okay, so if the dish looks like really delicious,
yeah. But like doing it every single day for
when it's just like. Not when it's just like a bowl of spaghetti. Ooh, let me take a picture of this. This is impressive. No, it's not.
Check out this sweet bowl of mini wheats, yo.
Yeah. God,
I actually kind of want to get mini wheats and just do that just to troll people.
I've never eaten mini wheats. I've always been like more of a Apple Jacks or like chocolate based cereal kind of guy. That's probably why my teeth are so fucked up. I like the funny thing about my Instagram is that like at first when I joined like 6 years ago in 2012 was 7 years ago. Jesus Christ. But like I joined 7 years ago. And it was a personal account pretty much. Then like something happened and I got into a phase and it became more of a fan account for movies and other things and whatnot. So it's like my friends, quote unquote friends from school who followed me or family members are just like, what the fuck is this? Why is my son or nephew or brother or friend posting about dumb shit that isn't important? And I don't know. It still was kind of like that. And I've just like, I don't know. I just kind of just post whatever I feel like on there. I don't feel like giving people a window into my life, pretty much. My Twitter is like the perfect mix of just fan shit and personal shit, I guess. But like neither of them, I don't know. I like Twitter more than Instagram, but people on Twitter annoy me. But especially, no, I'm not going to get into a bowl of worms. But yeah. I don't know. I'm seeing Captain Marvel tonight, and so is Ian.
Yep, we're not together.
We're not together because we are in 2 different countries.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm excited for it. I'm hoping it's good. I'm not listening.
Here.
I'm not listening to all the what's the word that I can say? Well, like man babies, I guess. I'm not going to listen to the man babies. And here's the thing, not all, and I will say this, just so y'all understand, not every criticism against Captain Marvel as a film is, I am not labeling it all as sexism, because all of it is not. There's a lot of valid criticism towards Marvel films, and that is totally fine. I am just saying I'm not going to read 10 articles from a certain news site talking about why Captain Marvel is going to destroy the MCU forever and why Brie Larson is the devil. I'm not going to give my time of day to that. Because that is
such informed, nuanced, well-balanced, thought-out opinions and
definitely,
journalism, man.
Definitely not, based on, it's not trigger words. It's not trigger words. It's something else. But like, just not based on just like putting in the words SJW and propaganda or whatever. It's like,
it's not Gator Chow
news, and we should definitely listen to it and take it at face value and not question it at all. Just like how we should always listen to headlines and never read the articles themselves. But yeah, I am excited for it. I am looking forward to it. I think it'll be fun. At the very least, it'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, if nothing else, it seems like Brie Larson and Sam Jackson both had a hell of a lot of fun making the movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So like that, I mean, usually even if a film like around everything else like that doesn't tend to work for me, if the main lead actors in it are having a really good time, or at least one of them is having a really good time, I can get into it on a certain level. Like,
yeah.
So
agreed.
I'm probably gonna enjoy for that. Yeah.
Like,
plus, I mean, like this for myself personally. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. One of my for a fun little thing for me, like this is the first superhero comic film where one of the creators that's has a cameo in it actually is someone I've met since Kelly Sue DeConnick, the writer of the first Carol Danvers Captain Marvel ongoing solo series back in from like 2012 till 2015. And kind of like she alongside Jamie McLeaver, kind of and Sana Amanat were like the progenitors and masterminds behind Carol taking over the Captain Marvel mantle and the design of her character and the direction of her solo series and whatnot. But Kelly Sue DeConnick creative consultant on the film, and she actually has a cameo in the movie. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. So like, I met her. She was really awesome and nice, and she was like the first comic creator I was actually able to get past my nervousness with and actually have a particularly fun conversation with. But yeah, Kelly Sue DeConnick is awesome, and anyone who gets the opportunity to meet her, do so.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of people I want to meet, and she's definitely on the list. But yeah, like look, I don't think Spider-Man 3 is an inherently good film, but Tobey Maguire was clearly having fun. Kirsten Dunst was clearly having fun. James Franco was clearly having fun.
Oh god, yeah. I mean, that grin.
Topher Grace, Topher Grace especially. Topher Grace, like, people want to shit on this Venom as much as they want. He was having a hell of a time, and that makes him so enjoyable, in my opinion. But we'll talk about Spider-Man 3 another day. Probably gearing up towards Far From Home. Hint. Well, that's not really a hint. That's me just saying, yeah, we'll talk about it before Far From Home at the very least. But
that's a good plan. We could always consider doing something where we take a look at each of the Spidey films leading into it.
Yeah, hint.
Subscribe if you want to hear it, and follow us on Twitter to keep up with it.
And follow us on Twitter at LOTE_podcast.
Yes.
Shameless plugging is fun, but yeah, that'll be fun to do. We'll get around to that, but we are not talking about subpar films of our favorite Spidey boy today. We are talking about a not subpar adaptation of our favorite Spidey boy today, but it depends on the person you ask. Today, we are talking about Ultimate Spider-Man. Now, we are not talking about the game. Well, we might mention the game, but we're not talking about the game, and we're not talking about the Miles Morales run of Ultimate Spider-Man. We are talking about the Peter Parker run of Ultimate Spider-Man that was from 2000.
We're not talking about the animated series either.
Not the animated series. That's a whole other video of us going to be ranting about.
Yes.
At least me be ranting about, because
I will join you in your ranting. Yes.
Oh, thank you. I am glad I'm not alone in my hatred of that butchering of this title. But yeah. So we are talking about the run of Peter Parker Ultimate Spider-Man, which was from 2000 to 2011, I believe.
Mhm.
Yes, 2011.
Mhm.
Because I think Miles Morales was introduced like later that year or the year after that. But
Mhm.
yeah, so basically, how I first found out about Ultimate Spider-Man was actually through the game.
Mhm.
I think I told this story in an earlier episode with James, but in case any of you forget, I used to be very scared of Venom. 2005 was the year that I kind of broke that fear, but before that moment in 2005, I saw the game on a rack in Blockbuster Video. Rest in peace, Ave Maria. But I saw that on the rack, and I was gonna rent it. Then I saw Venom on the cover, and I was like, "No, I don't want any part of this." Ugh, excuse me. But then about a year later, after I moved into my new house, like in 2006 or whatever, I rented the game and I played it, and it took me about a solid 3 or 2 years to beat it because I was a dumb kid and I didn't know how to play video games. But yeah, so I played that. I'm like, oh, I thought that the symbiote was an alien because I watched the 90s cartoon. And I was like, I thought it was an alien. Why is it this? And there are a lot of differences that I was seeing. And like, oh, I thought it was just like a weird adaptation from the game. But then like I went to not Blockbuster. I went to Barnes and Noble one day, and there was a comic section, and I saw these book titles, Venom. So I read it, and I was like, oh, this is exactly like it was in the game. And that's when I realized, oh, the game was based off of this line of comics. So then I started, over the years, starting to read the comics, and that's how I pretty much got introduced and got into them. So how about you, Ian?
I started my Ultimate Spider-Man story in high school. It's kind of weird, actually. Like, mine's kind of piecemeal here and there. My very earliest exposure to Ultimate Spider-Man was actually back before high school, even. I think in grade 7 or grade 8. So I was around like 11 or 12, I think, maybe. Yeah. Anyway, a friend of mine had a friend of mine that I had at the time was basically kind of got me and like showed me this comic that he'd picked up. And I wasn't regularly reading comics or anything like that. Like my only real exposure with comics at that point was mostly through like the comic set at the back of Disney Adventure magazine, or the like the free issues of Lego Bionicle comic that DC published that came with the Club Lego, or the Lego Club magazine, that I was subscribed to as a little kid at the time. But my friend anyway had found this cool storyline where basically it was a telling of the Sinister Six forming, and in it had like it had the Avengers in it, but it also had the Secret Six or the Sinister Six. Be prepared for me to make that slip up a lot, by the way, as someone who loves Secret Six, but also as a Spider-Man fan, my brain will always flip between my mouth will unintentionally flip between Sinister and Secret all the time.
You're all good.
Thanks. Anyway, my friend actually shared with me this thing called Ultimate Six, and basically through that I got interested and I was kind of curious about it. So I went to this was probably the very first trip I ever made to a comic book store ever. Actually, this little place that was just a little ways away from me. They've moved since, but the store's still open. Heroes World, and I picked up the first couple of issues of this series, Ultimate Six. I basically read up to issue 4, and then I kind of lost track of it because I mean, at that point I was a idiot kid with 11, 12 years old, was unable, like, did not know anything about a bus schedule, didn't know, didn't have access to a car, didn't have any kind of like job or any kind of allowance or anything like that. So I was dependent on my parents buying these stuff for me and going there, like, acquiescing to me going there first of all, and buying buying the comics for me on top of that. So that was kind of it for then. But then when I graduated and went to high school, the high school library, I just took, to my infinite joy, I discovered had a graphic novel section. And amongst some of those graphic novels were Superman Red Son, DC's A New Frontier, 52 Volume 1, and Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 5, Public Enemies. And I must have borrowed those books 8 or 9 different times each whilst I was going to that high school. And eventually through there, through reading Ultimate Spider-Man Public Enemies, I got really interested into reading more of this stuff. So eventually, I don't know if it was that same Christmas or whether the Christmas after, but Christmas during, that, I guess it would have been grade 9 actually. My aunt was nice enough to give me volume 12 of the series. God, brain fail here. Ultimate 12 of the series. Sorry, this is gonna bug me if I don't have the name correctly. Superstars, that's right. Which basically was I had like a couple different stories. One that featured Wolverine, and one that featured the Human Torch. And that was from that point onward. I basically sought out to, made it my goal to track down and read all of this series because I fell completely and utterly in love with how Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Bagley and company wrote and drew Peter and Aunt May and Mary Jane and Gwen Stacy and Kingpin and Green Goblin and Doc Ock and all these really fun characters. And it helped that this was also around the same time that the Raimi Spider-Man films, like the first Spider-Man film, I think came out around like a year or two before. I remember I actually got Volume 6, Venom, the day that I saw Spider-Man 3 in theaters in May of 2007. I picked it up the same day, enjoyed it a lot more than the movie. That'll be the last time I bring up Spider-Man 3. Promise.
I feel like we shouldn't make promises we can't keep, Mr. Parker. Quoting from another film about our Spidey boy, but yeah. But
basically the kind of from there I got into reading. That also got me to read all kinds of other stuff, but like this episode's going to be very near to dear to my heart in a way, because whilst my own views and whatnot on the series to an extent and on the writer and the creators who've worked on the artists and everyone who worked on it have like changed and morphed as I've gotten older, this series more than any other comic out there is what got me into reading comics regularly. I wasn't picking them up month to month or like in single issue form. I was reading them in trade paperback, which I still have all these trade paperbacks. I've got them sitting right next to me right now actually, but this is what got me into reading comics and really got me immersed into wanting to learn more about these characters' stories and this universe that they were in this storytelling format of sequential art panels and whatnot, and the media and what this medium can do that animation and video games and stage and and movies and radio plays and everything else can't do. This unique weird little entity that is comics. This series is somewhat responsible for that, and it's also really responsible for getting me through some really tough times in high school, and even when I first moved away from home for for a year of college. What I would do when I got really depressed is I would go and dig out my trades for this, and I'd read and reread and reread them again. Like the number of times I've read through this series is, well, it's a lot. I could not tell you the exact number, but it means a lot to me, and I cannot, regardless of any other pros and cons given to anyone working on this team, I cannot thank them enough, because they have saved my life in a few occasions, and they more than anything else are responsible for my love of comics. So that's my backstory anyway.
Well, I don't have a very emotionally tinged backstory. I do, but it's personal and dark. No, not really. But yeah, I mean, it did get me into reading comics too. Unfortunately, I the way my life has been, I haven't been able to until this year. Until I joined on Comics Ground when we were named Shoot the Breeze Comics. I wasn't ever able to keep up with comics outside of just reading what's going on in articles or on Twitter or reading Wikipedia pages, but I've started to, and I'm still, not there yet, but I'm getting there. But yeah. So we now are going to do a terrible segue into talking about we're just going to quickly tell our thoughts on Ultimate Spider-Man. So as a whole, from start to finish, the Peter run of Ultimate Spider-Man, I think it is a great interpretation of 616 Spider-Man. I think it's a great adaptation.
Oh, definitely.
But I do think also there are a lot of issues, which we will talk about later. Yep. But that's the thing, is that no like comic can go on for so long without issues. That's just impossible. Hell, even like Spencer's run of Amazing Spider-Man has kind of hit a brick wall, kind of for a couple issues,
or even like going outside of like Spider-Man, like stuff like Tom King's Batman, or even Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's Batman had a weird like kind of awkward phase in between the Court of Owls stuff and the 0 Year stuff, and when the book kind of basically picked up momentum with that and basically carried it on from that point onward. There was a little weird era right before 0 Year where they were kind of just telling like the odd iffier stories here that people don't really tend to remember as much.
Yeah, there's just no, you're good. There's like there are a lot of issues, which again we will get into, but I think that this is still a very important piece of history for Spider-Man. I'm excited about, or like talking about, I saw people complaining about Peter being tied in with S.H.I.E.L.D. in Far From Home and tied in with Nick Fury, and I'm like, that's from the comics. That is legitimately almost 1-to-1 from Ultimate Spider-Man. And somebody told me like, well, Ultimate Spider-Man is pretty much just a glamorized fan fiction. It's like every run of comics is a glamorized fan fiction.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's what none of these comics nowadays are original works. Like nothing anybody's writing from Marvel or DC is an original work. It's all a continuation written by somebody new and what they wanted and where they want to take the story. That's if that's your definition of fan fiction, that's fan fiction. So
I mean, the only real technical difference between fan fiction and published canon are like what's really canon, or like official official stories from like Marvel or DC or anything like outside of like Star Wars, Star Trek, Twilight, whatever Milo Ponies, whatever the hell. The only real difference is the fact that one of them was basically licensed by and like paid for by the company that owns the brand and those characters to release and distribute widely. The other is one that someone decided to make and create on their own time. That's really the only major difference, is that one of them happens to just have like this corporate, this corporately owned branding, because again, the people who wrote it were being paid and paid to do so, but like in all other cases, it's basically fan fiction.
Yeah, and like I do get with using fan fiction as a negative term, because there are some things that are like, that's very fan fiction-y, which is basically just like doesn't make any coherent sense, but is just like meant to appease some one person's thing. Then again, sins past. Let's use our heads to figure that one out. If you want to call Ultimate Spider-Man fanfiction, go for it. But it's still published. It is canon in some certain way, because Miles, at least in 616, lived through all of that. I think.
Also, Bombshell is still running about. Just in this week's issue of Champions.
Oh yeah, and then
Champions review when it hits the website this week.
Oh yeah. Hint, hint. Should we just call this episode Hint, Hint? Or
sure,
I don't know.
Ultimate Hint. That should be the title.
Ultimate Hint. Ultimate Hintimatum.
Yep.
Oh god,
sounds good.
Ultitatum, like Gail Simone said. Like this, you can see it as fan fiction-y, but it is the Spider-Man history, and it got a lot of people into reading Spider-Man comics. That was the intent of the Ultimate Comics to begin with, because there was so much history. Like at this point, there was like 40 years history of Marvel Comics, of characters like the Fantastic Four, Iron Man, Captain America, X-Men, even more so with Captain America, the X-Men, Spider-Man, and Marvel was just like, how about we keep having 616 going. and we make a new universe to introduce new readers to that is more modern and updated.
Yeah. And even the issues themselves were designed less to be sold sold and read as individual issues and more to be read in a collected trade paperback form. Which
agreed. Like,
I mean, of the many faults that then head of Marvel at the time, Bill Jemas, had, the decision, and following him, Joe Quesada, one of the biggest successes they had was being aware of the rising potential of a book market with trade paperback collections. Because that's honestly where comics tend to make so much more of their money nowadays than they ever could in print, brick and mortar stores or even digital sales.
Yeah, and honestly, from the get-go, Ultimate Spider-Man I think it was very clear, it was meant to be read as trade by trade, because his origin story lasts one volume, and that's like 6. I don't remember how many issues it was, but it was like 6 or 5, something like that.
6, I think. 7. Sorry, 7. I got 7 right here.
Oh God, 7. Yeah, like there's a lot. Like, compare that to Amazing Fantasy 15, which is 1 issue of his origin. There's a lot going on, but so I think we're just gonna kick it into what our favorite story arcs are. Me personally, well, first of all, the origin I really like.
Power and Responsibility,
yeah. Power and Responsibility. I really like that story arc because it gives us enough time to understand Peter as a character before jumping into him being Spider-Man. It gives us enough time to get to know MJ as a character, and Aunt May, and Uncle Ben, and Flash Thompson, and
Norman Osborn,
and Norman Osborn, and Harry Osborn, and so on and so forth. Harry was, I'll say this right now, Harry was done dirty in this entire run because he was like nowhere. He would just come and then he'd leave, and then he'd come and then he'd leave.
Oh, and it's the most amount of attention he got was in volume 13 with Hobgoblin.
When he became Hobgoblin, and then Norman killed him. That was fun.
Yeah, Death with Goblin, yeah.
That was fun, and then Norman told everybody to shoot him. God. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. But yeah, I really like that. People always say that the scene in Amazing Spider-Man where Peter and Ben are talking is so like that was ripped right from the pages of Ultimate Spider-Man. Like read that issue or trade or whatever of the origin. That conversation is lifted 1-to-1 nearly from when Ben's like, if you do good things for other people, you have a moral obligation to do those things. And then Peter's like, if this is so important to my father, then where is he?
Yep.
And then he runs away. That's lifted right from the comics. And it's like, there's a lot of things people judge movies for doing differently from the comics they read. That's like, read this other comic where it lifted from, which is what they're doing with Peter and S.H.I.E.L.D. and Far From Home, but I digress. So, and there was this one beautiful image that I remember, I think it was a splash page, where Peter breaks down crying and MJ holds him.
Oh, yeah, that was a splash.
Yeah, that is like ingrained in my head. That's just like beautiful. And
issue 6 or 7, I think, or issue 5 or 6, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right near the end of the trade.
Yeah, that was rough. And like, yeah, and the way Peter becomes a hero is very well done, I think, because it was essentially like he becomes Spider-Man when Green Goblin starts wrecking shit, right?
Yeah. I mean, he based like it sticks to the original Amazing Fantasy 15 thing where they have him do the well, I mean, I guess not Amazing Fantasy 15 necessarily. What version of the origin did they have him do the wrestling thing first? Because I know there was the one where in Amazing Fantasy 15 he had the TV show, wasn't there?
He did the wrestling in Amazing Fantasy 15 too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and then he had the TV show after. Yeah, but like it keeps the wrestling part for a bit. So like Peter briefly joins the basketball team, which is kind of like a newer thing that and it kind of reminded me a little bit of like in Smallville season 4 when Clark joins the football team.
Yeah. And then when Flash broke his hand because
Mhm.
Peter stopped it with an open fist, and
Mhm.
everybody called Peter a freak, and
Mhm.
Flash's family was suing
Yep.
Aunt May and Uncle Ben. I'm like, that's just
Mhm.
like, it is rough, but it's like, that's unfortunately how school systems are, and like
Oh
bullies and their
yeah. Mhm.
parents, like, they'll, it doesn't matter, like, if their
Right.
kid was in the wrong,
Mhm.
if your kid was hurt by
Mhm.
another kid, even if it was unintentional, they're going to sue the
Mhm.
hell out of you because they don't care.
Oh, and I can also like tell you straight up, anytime like even if you're like even if you don't do a single goddamn thing to the other kid in any sort of altercation, you're involved in an altercation. At least in my neck of the woods, at least when I was growing up in high school, or in the schools that I went to or whatnot, you get suspended for it.
Oh yeah,
Hmm. Which Peter, I mean, like again, if Peter was going to school near
they
me, he
like,
would have gotten suspended
yeah,
even for not doing anything.
yeah. That's just, I hate that.
Hmm.
Like, but that's a whole nother, yeah,
Yeah,
that's a whole
that's.
other can of worms. But
Hmm.
so yeah, I love the origin.
Hmm. Although, just flipping through the book here, I just noticed
No, you're
minor,
good.
minor pet peeve here. I noticed like Peter in it, like Peter, or like there's a brief bit like right before like Uncle Ben dies, where like he and Aunt May are talking about how they don't really have the money to cover the lawsuit from his parents, and then like I think like whilst like just slightly earlier in the, or yeah, no, they're talking like Peter overhears them. They have a shot of the window where they show like Peter with Peter with Uncle Ben catching a fish, and then right above that is a picture of like a photo of Peter, May, and Ben Parker at what's clearly Epcot, holding a Mickey Mouse balloon, and I'm like, which I mean, cute and all, but at the same time, okay, how much money did you have to spend in order for a family that lives in
Yeah,
Queens to go to like a lower middle class family that lives in Queens to go to Disney World in Florida?
which is like across the entire country.
Yeah, it's literally from like one
Yeah,
end of the U.S. to the other.
it's either like from New York to Florida or New York to California.
I'm pretty
That's
certain
like,
It's Florida, I think, because they've got Epcot there. So
oh, they do. Okay,
yeah,
I thought,
like they specifically have the big dome. So
okay,
I
but
guess I'll never know.
yeah, but I do like how Peter became a wrestler, not really out of
Mhm.
selfishness, but
Yeah.
because
He wanted to
he
help pay off
yeah,
the lawsuit. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah. On one hand, some people will be like, well, that goes against, because Peter was supposed to be selfish at this point.
Hmm.
I see this is a different version of Peter, and Peter
Hmm.
is very mopey and angsty in this,
Hmm.
but he is not all that selfish, I think.
Hmm. And I mean,
Um,
his the selfishness for him manifests itself with him wanting to play with him playing basketball.
yeah, that's it. That's where it manifested.
Yeah,
But
because that's really something that only like all it does is boost his public profile at school. Because like even Peter later admits that he's playing basketball and he doesn't even like it. He doesn't even know why he's doing it, other than the fact that get some attention and whatnot, and the fact that he was offered to do it or whatnot. He was kind of pressured into it a little bit at school, but like he legitimately otherwise doesn't. He gets no real pleasure out of doing it.
yeah,
Hmm.
but it is a good insight to his
Hmm.
character
Yep.
and his motivations, because like that whole story arc is him finding himself, and that's
Hmm.
all of Ultimate Spider-Man, I think, is Peter
Yeah,
finding
pretty
himself.
much. Hmm.
But yeah, I really like the origin. Legacy, which is the fourth trade paperback.
Oh yeah, where
Um,
they introduce,
I love
where
that.
like they bring back Norman. Yeah,
And then
that's
they
fun.
have Nick. I think this is where Nick and Peter meet for the first
Yep.
time.
Hmm. Yep.
And Nick is like, "Oh yeah, kid, when you're 18, you're property of
Hmm.
the U.S. government." And Peter's like,
Hmm. Flips the hell out. Yeah.
this really beautiful, like, reference or homage to the bridge scene with Gwen Stacy in Amazing Spider-Man
Hmm.
121, where they had MJ almost get dropped off the bridge, but Peter saved her. He
Yep.
didn't, like, she didn't die, thankfully. But
Hmm.
we get into a bit of a rut because like this causes her to break up with him because she's
Hmm.
afraid of the danger,
Yeah. Oh,
which
can
I
I just say
understand.
one? Yeah, sorry. Just one other thing I wanted to mention with the whole Green Goblin thing and that whole throwing him off a bridge thing. There's an issue later on in the arc where it opens from Norman's perspective, and what's really cool about it is that we basically get like we basically see all of his like the fact that he's like how batshit crazy he really is when he's on the Goblin juice. Is he's like he starts hallucinating all these weird semi-translucent like blobby goblin, blobby gremlin goblin-esque things around him. They keep whispering different things to him. There's constant like incoherent speech patterns and whatnot, and
Yeah.
and then when Peter shows up, he's like seeing this weird, twisted, mutated version of Peter, where it's like basically the halfway to man spider-esque kind of design for Peter, and like
Yeah.
Peter's dialogue balloons are really distorted in the lettering stretch, just to kind of show that like Norman can't even hear what Peter's saying correctly. Like it's messing him up that much. Like it was really creepy and very effective, I think.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I do kind of take issue with how Ultimate Norman's motivations are very scrambled from everywhere. Because like it seems like every time he's introduced, he's given like a new personality or a new motivation.
Yeah, he's very much treated like the Joker in that sense.
Yeah, and I don't know if I like that or not. Like him in this is very different from him in Death of Spider-Man, which we'll get to later. But I like
even like Ultimate 6 or whatnot.
Yeah, I like Legacy. Venom, I love. I'm not going to get into that too much, but that's a really cool iteration of Venom.
Where basically the symbiote actually comes from, not from space, but is basically a medical suit procedure that Peter and Eddie Brock's parents were fathers are working on together to design to basically to cure cancer.
Yeah, and it was interesting. It was really interesting, and like, I mean, I don't know if it sits well with me that this. Okay, well, I guess. I mean, Eddie Brock's character in 616 has been like so confused for a long time, and like to the point that Donny Cates has literally just said, "Okay, here is who Eddie Brock is. All of these retcons that have happened were just a symbiote fucking with his mind." So time like this Eddie Brock in Ultimate in 1610 is creeping on a 15-year-old girl. That I don't like that. And yeah, I don't know. Eddie just doesn't have a lot of character progression. I mean, he has more character progression in the game, but like
we'll get
he himself
later. Negatives and whatnot, because the way they handled it, because like the game is considered in canon with the comics. I think Bendis was actually the one who wrote it.
And then he tried to like, oh well, let's put this in an actual book instead of just saying it's canon. And then
symbiotes, it's just weird.
That but we'll get to that. But so I like that. The Carnage storyline, I love, but I really do miss that. I really am sad that they did not have Cletus Cassidy in this, because imagine like how fucked up Cletus Cassidy is in 616. Imagine how worse he would be in 1610.
Yeah, like, I mean that's the reality where they have like the Ultimate Universe is where cannibalism is way more frequent. So
yeah,
it would be one.
Yeah, but like there could have been something really cool there. But I still do love the Carnage storyline. But it is weird that that Carnage is just a walking suit with no. But it needs Peter. That's why it's coming after Peter and absorbing and people into husks. And that's actually where Gwen Stacy dies.
Yep.
Which Gwen Stacy, this iteration of her, I really like because it's very different. It's very different from 616 because this version of Gwen Stacy is like a delinquent punk.
Yeah, like she's the anti-authoritarian, basically. Like,
yeah,
and like I mean, think a little bit like in terms of like I mean, not to the like vegan or vegan side of things, or whatever, but kind of think like a little bit like Sam Madsen from like Danny Phantom or something like that in a way, like in terms of very much like I mean, like she's someone who's really like doesn't like she doesn't like strive to be super popular or whatnot or anything like that, but but also really being very kind and compassionate. I mean, one of my absolute favorite things about the Ultimate Universe stuff and Gwen's story and May's is how they intersect and how May basically kind of basically ends up taking Gwen in and whatnot after, because in the Public Enemies arc, near the end of that, the guy running around impersonating Spider-Man, who's not the Chameleon, but someone else, at least in that storyline anyway, who's running around doing that, basically ends up getting cornered by the police, like trying to rob an armored car right near a police convention. Dumbass. And Captain Stacy tragically dies, So May ends up taking Gwen in, and I really like that as a result, kind of like I like the relationship that develops as kind of like a surrogate mother-daughter relationship between the two that lasts even all the way through like past Peter's death and into the Miles Morales stuff, as the two of them alongside MJ help kind of try and guide Miles a little bit.
Yeah.
So that was a nice touch I really liked.
Yeah, Gwen, I think, is like your shining achievement of like the first iteration of Gwen Stacy that's like different enough to work on her own.
And I also really like that her relationship, like this is going to go into my own personal negatives with the series as a whole, with the first storyline post Ultimatum.
Oh, I know what you're going to talk about.
Spider-Man, yeah, where they basically had Peter break up with MJ briefly at some point in between Ultimatum and this relaunch, and he's dating Gwen, which always felt creepy and weird to me because, yeah, no, like Peter and Gwen are basically like more or less like spiritual siblings. They really are.
Yeah.
And it worked really well that way. I mean, like, admittedly, going back and reading through the Gwen's initial introduction, you can kind of see one or two moments where she's kind of maybe potentially kind of checking Peter out, but like she never once really makes any sort of like overt move towards him or anything like that, or really never before that Ultimate Comics thing has ever remotely seemed like Gwen actually has any particularly strong romantic feelings towards Peter. They never ever come across as anything more than platonic, or again as they kind of end up living together more like a sibling-esque. I don't know what it wouldn't be romantic or platonic. I don't know what you used to describe that, but
it's kind of just weird and unnecessary. A lot of the Peter and MJ breakups were unnecessary in this entire run.
Yeah, true. But their relationship is really, really fun and endearing. I really do love. I love Ultimate MJ. I really do. There's a bit in I think it's in Superstars, or possibly an arc or two later, actually, where Peter and MJ are broken up, where she briefly kind of goes on this sort of date with this other guy who's basically the Ultimate Universe equivalent of the Molten Man.
That's right. That's right.
Band in that universe. But she's on a date with him, and like he basically like asks her, why she's, why she keeps dwelling on this Peter gone on, and she kind of like opens herself up a lot and like basically points out how much she's completely and utterly in love with him. And on top of that, I really like the fact that like MJ's like, I wanted to be an actress, and I thought for a moment, then I thought, then after a second thought, I realized I don't like any goddamn actress or any movie I've ever seen any actress in. And then she realized that I want to be a teacher. Like, I love the idea of MJ as a teacher. Like, that's a really cool thing. And I like the fact that like the way that MJ is introduced in this comic, she's not like the popular cheerleader type, or like an actress who kind of or like like drama program transfer like in the Spectacular Spider-Man animated series, but rather that she's just as much of a nerd as Peter, and whatnot, like to the point where like when you first like her first like few arcs that she appears in, she's wearing like sporting overalls and whatnot, has like the pigtails. Like I like that in a weird way. She's it's like she's almost as much
of a geek as Peter is. But I think both the versions of MJ and Gwen in this version are very well developed, and MJ, some people have taken issue with her being a reporter in the game, and it's like that is from Ultimate. That is kind of from Ultimate.
Because she starts to go towards that way, towards the tail end of the Ultimate.
Yeah, and I don't like the notion that some people have that 616 MJ is just a damsel in distress just because the Raimi movies were inspired by her, and it's like she's not. Her being an actress or a model is not weak. It's just a different iteration of the character. But I definitely really like Ultimate MJ, which is where I'm going into this next storyline. The Clone Saga.
Oh yeah.
Oh man. I got this from I used to have an LCS. It's not here anymore, unfortunately. But I found this special edition hardcover of the trade of Ultimate Clone Saga, and it has a really cool variant cover on it of Spider-Man and all his clones. But this basically is like if Ultimate Spider-Man was a TV show, not a shitty TV show that was on Disney XD, but like an actual TV show, whether it be animated or live action, and it was going to have a season finale. this would be that season finale.
Oh,
or at least
definitely,
like a 3 or 4 part season finale.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Because what happens in this, it's like we get the blow off of the tension between Peter and Nick Fury, where
Mhm.
Nick is basically, these clones are going around, and we see that they are like, Peter, and Nick is like, okay, Peter is a public safety hazard. We have to take him out, or we have to
Yep.
bring him in.
Mhm.
So, like, you go from Peter fighting the Scorpion, which turns out to be a clone of himself.
Mhm.
Then, like, he goes home, and then he meets like Spider-Woman Jessica Drew, who is in this universe a female clone of Peter,
which I loved. That was really fun.
Oh, I love that. I miss her. I miss her a lot. She needs to come back. But
she should have been in Spider-Geddon. I mean, I know that story was goofy, but like, it's weird that they don't bring up the Ultimate Universe because technically it still exists.
Yeah,
like between Spider-Man 2 and Ultimate Squared, and the ending of those two, at least, I think it pretty much confirmed that at least some version of it is out there in the Marvel multiverse again.
Kicking around. It's kicking around out there somewhere. But so he meets her, and then they go home to Aunt May, where Aunt May finds out Peter is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Then Peter's
before that.
Oh wait,
you know what he find like because like he and May had moved at one point early in the series, so he goes back to his old house briefly. And he finds Gwen Stacy there, because Gwen Stacy is alive again.
That's right. And and they're like, what the fuck? And then May comes back and she's like, what the fuck is going on? And she has like a nervous breakdown when Peter reveals that he is Spider-Man. And she's like, and she's yelling at him, telling him to like get out of her house. Then Peter's dad walks in the door and is like, hey, son, how are you doing? And then he explains that, oh, I've been around and Aunt May was telling me to stay away.
And then you also, while this is going on, MJ was kidnapped by basically the Kane clone.
Oh yeah, Kane.
And is about to turn her into a Green Goblin, like basically douse her with Oz, as he's basically kidnapped her and taken her to to a decommissioned Oscorp site.
Yeah, and then Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. agents storm the house. And then Gwen Stacy turns into fucking Carnage and just rips through everybody. Then the Fantastic Four arrive to help out. And Sue Storm and Reed Richard, not Sue and Reed, Sue and Richard are going to figure everything out. And while this is going on, Peter and the clones, the good clones, well, we find out the clones were made by Ben Reilly, who in this universe was a partner of Kurt Connors? Yeah, he was. He was partner of Kurt Connors, and he worked with Richard Parker, quote unquote, to make these clones. And so now all the clones are going to save MJ because they all have attachment to her. And so they're all going to stop Kane, who has a really cool suit, by the way. It's really creepy. It's like a very like shittily sewed Spider-Man suit, and it like Kane in 616, I guess, was terrifying for the 90s or whatever, but like this one is just very creepy. Like he like I love the difference, but
there's also fuzzy six-arm Spidey.
Oh, that's right. I liked him. I liked him. I wish some of the clones survived, except like Peter and Jessica Drew. But yeah. So while this is going on, Reed Richards and Sue Storm are like figuring shit out, and she basically finds out that he's just a clone of Peter Parker.
Yep.
Given the face and voice and memories of Richard Parker, and false memories too.
Yep. And on top of that,
Richard dies because
goes and turns into a giant red goblin.
Yeah, and that's oh boy, that was interesting. But then she saw like Peter was hurt, and then she calmed down, and then like she's taken off to the Baxter Building to be taken care of. And
guess who shows up?
Otto Octavius, the tentacle man himself. And this is where it gets kind of dumb, because it's like he's working with the government to bring Peter in, and he's just relishing. But it is cool that he's relishing. It's cool that he's relishing the fact that like I basically violated you by making clones of you and making you see your father again, only to just kill him.
Oh yeah.
He's, like, that is straight up just evil, and I love.
Oh yeah,
I
and
love
like
that.
the fact that he's like doing all this like basically with the government's consent, because again, he's basically working with the CIA because the CIA and like certain other like people in the president's cabinet don't like Nick Fury because Nick Fury is kind of an asshole at points in the Ultimate Universe and does some really shady shit, as Nick Furies want to do in any universe. But regardless, they basically are trying to like this whole program is basically set up and Otto plucked out of prison to run it, basically as an attempt at basically their own kind of personal super army and wanted so they could eventually depose Nick Fury because Nick Fury knew nothing about this and is caught off guard as everyone else when Otto shows up.
Yeah, and Peter just like asks for 5 minutes to deal with Otto, and he and Jessica Drew start fighting him, and then the dumb thing is that basically they just say, "Oh, Otto is Magneto."
Yeah, pretty much. That's the one part of this I don't like is he shows up without his arms because his arms were destroyed at the end of his last appearance, I think, in the Hollywood arc.
Yeah,
that was a fun arc, admittedly. Just basically doing an entire arc with, there's a Spider-Man movie coming out. We should do another Spider-Man movie coming out.
And then they had Tobey. Yeah,
they actually had Tobey Maguire and Sam Raimi in the book.
Yeah, it was.
Avi Arad too, even.
Yeah, they had Avi Arad too. Yeah. So they beat Otto, and then Peter goes to see MJ, and MJ basically just tells Nick Fury off. Like, and I love this. She's just like, "Do you not realize how much he looks up to you and wants to be like you? You're like a father to him." And so then after that, Peter goes to the hospital to check up on May, and Nick Fury comes to him and basically is just like, "I was wrong, you were right." And this is like one of the best This is like one of the best things from Ultimate Spider-Man, where Nick Fury's like, "You have every reason in the world to become a supervillain. You have like every right to just snap and go insane, and but you don't. And despite everything the world has done to you, like, you've stayed good, and you are going to be like the best of any of us."
Now I see that the opposite is true. Now I see that I am watching the birth of someone really special. That is, if you don't fuck it all up before you graduate high school.
God, but I still love that. And then Peter and May reconcile, and then Peter and MJ get back together. But then Kitty Pryde is in the background, just
because the X-Men show up late, which I kind of love that. First of all, but the X-Men show up late to the whole brouhaha only after Otto and everything else has been dealt with. Because Peter tried to contact Kitty, and it took forever for her to finally get the X-Men together and whatnot.
Yeah.
They show up, in the aftermath at Queens, and then they finally show up at the hospital, and Kitty's like, "Okay, Xavier, I need you to wipe May's memory of Peter's identity as Spider-Man." Because she basically corrals the whole X-Men group there, because they're all above all else they're there because of Kitty's connection to Peter. They would help him out anyway, but because Peter and her were dating at the time and whatnot.
Yeah.
He really strong arms the whole way, and this also leads eventually to Kitty leaving the X-Men and joining the book long term as as another person at the school afterwards. In the next arc is basically there's a huge blowout after this because of that. Is this also the first time that we have, at least in the Ultimate Spider-Man stuff, where we have that's Sharon Carter. I just didn't realize because they colored her blonde in this page, because I know that they have Carol Danvers later, which is another slight negative to this series.
Wait, was Ultimate Carol Danvers the one who took over S.H.I.E.L.D. after Nick Fury?
Yeah, I mean, there's two. Because there's also.
I thought that was Sharon. That's weird.
No, it was pretty certain. It was. I don't know what happens to Sharon Carter actually after this, because I don't really remember her popping up much after that.
I don't know, but anyway, I want to jump from that to talk about the highs and lows of this whole thing. Well, I think we've already talked about all the highs, so I mean, we can talk about the lows. There, as much as I do love this run, there are some and this is just a state of how comics were in the 2000s. Because, I look back on the 2000s with a fondness of nostalgia, but at the same time, there was some really, really just kind of trying to be modern and edgy and dark. Because it just doesn't work.
The Ultimate Deadpool, for instance, of that.
Ugh, God, Ultimate Deadpool. I like that they just erased him in Shattered Dimensions and just put in like actual Deadpool.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's just like, oh well, after the events of of Ultimate Dead, or like of that Deadpool arc where he was introduced, he went crazy, and now he's just basically the regular Deadpool, and he's wearing his the normal Deadpool suit. And we get Deadpool, we understand Deadpool.
Yay!
Dan Slott tries to fix something Bendis wrote.
God. You never thought. Well, it makes sense because those are the only two men who would be involved in that situation. But, so okay, what should we start with? How about when Wolverine tried to bang MJ?
Oh god, yeah.
That was
that Ultimate Superstars was the Superstars arc was the first trade I ever owned, which. I still have I admittedly even still have a bit of a soft spot for that crossover because there's a lot of really fun humor that results from Peter, and because basically the premise for this storyline is that Peter and Logan swap minds after Logan hit on Jean Grey one too many times, because in Ultimate X-Men there's a point in that series where Logan keeps doing that to Jean, and she basically tells him flat out, "You do that to me one more time, and I'm going to do something with my telekinesis that's me really, really mean, and you're not going to like." And then basically at the end of this two-parter, she reveals, "Yeah, no, you did it. You once again hit on me, and I told you I was going to do this. So I basically used my telepathy to put my mind in the place it least wanted to be," which apparently in this case subconsciously was Peter Parker's body. Harsh.
And that, yeah.
Which I also want to point out, still creepy on Logan because again, Jean, much like MJ, fucking teenager in this continuity.
Yeah, it's okay, yeah, it's just like, oh, well, if we weren't talking about Ultimate Spider-Man, we also have to bring up the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver thing.
Oh god.
But we won't talk about
why
that.
The flying fuck there's an entire issue of the Death of Spider-Man Fallout that's literally devoted to nothing but the fact that Quicksilver is alive again, just as incestuous as he was before, and doesn't even mention Peter's death or Miles or anything in regards to Death of Ultimate Spider-Man. Seriously, somebody really
wanted that thing between Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, and it shows. I
don't know who the fuck they are, but they are a creepy fucking weirdo.
They are, and it's but yeah, like
that issue. I'll look that up now.
Yeah, but so like, she basically Logan doesn't learn his lesson at all. Nope. And then Jean's like, "Oh shit, I should have thought this through. Somebody else was involved in this." And Peter just like tells them off and just
he basically like just swings off swearing up a high storm to them, or just like,
yeah.
Oh, what do you know? Issue 5 was Nick Spencer wrote for that with the Quicksilver thing.
Oh. Okay, Nick Spencer's redeemed himself in my eyes because of Amazing Spider-Man, but
I really disagree. Let's move on. Yeah, I've got a couple.
Oh, Black Cat. Okay, whose idea? Well, okay, I guess it was Bendis's, but like, who said, "Oh, let's tease a pedophilic relationship between an adult Black Cat and a 15-year-old Peter Parker"? You could have easily just made Black Cat a teenager.
Yep,
you could have easily. It could have worked. Like, hell, people have like. I saw this one fan art that I really liked, where it was like Peter, like MCU Peter meeting Felicia Hardy in high school. I'm like, you know what? I actually would be down to see that in a movie.
Yeah, same.
Because that would be an interesting new take. But instead, they had basically just an entire volume or a few issues or whatever of Peter being hit on by an adult woman, and it is so it's supposed to be shown in a funny light, and I'm just like, this is just kind of creepy because we know that, like, she doesn't know that Peter is 15.
No, yeah, no.
I mean, when she finds out,
when Peter actually, when she finds out when he takes his mask off, she vomits in front of him,
and like, their relationship is going to be awkward. Like, one of the things about Peter's relationship with Black Cat is that, like, their relationship doesn't always have to be like sexual tension or flirting. But there has to be there is like a romantic history there. And I think that's done best and highlighted in like Nick Spencer's new run, where Felicia pretty much is like friends with Peter, but they still acknowledge that history and they mean something to each other still.
Yeah, the most recent issue that was actually pretty good for that.
Oh yeah,
Because
absolutely.
just focus solely on Felicia and her side of things after relearning that Peter is Spider-Man.
God, I actually haven't read that yet. I need to.
Oh,
I need to.
It's on the drive. It's really good.
Yeah, I need to read that. But
Got me even more excited for that Black Cat solo series. Which, by the by, people.
oh, that's a thing. That's happening.
Yep,
Good,
the
good.
Black Cat solo ongoing series.
Now that her character is fixed, I'm down for that.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, considering the fact that I read the Catwoman as a Queen Pin thing when DC was doing that, I would have read the same thing with Felicia if he had a decent creative team on it back when I was like this. But
yeah, but yeah, like I don't get, like, it's not. I guess to teenage boys who this was appealing to, like it's funny or engaging to read
or
about,
power
like,
fantasy sort of thing.
Yeah, or like I don't want to sound like that one video I've seen, but like the male fantasy type thing, where it's like, just like they're supposed to put themselves in Peter's seat in that. And I don't want to get into the specifics of that because, like, I'm not the best person to talk about that because I'm not knowledgeable enough about that. And I don't want to get too far into that, but it's weird. It shouldn't have been done because in hindsight, with the hindsight we have now, it's just issues of Peter being hit on by an adult woman, and it's not comfortable. It is very uncomfortable. Because if they just had Black Cat leave after that, that would be understandable. Because it's like, well, now you've thrown out the, like, one of the points of their relationship, but then she comes back after that several times, and it's just
she even comes back in the lead into Death of Ultimate Spider-Man, which I'd completely forgotten this. That was actually like 152 where she does. That was actually drawn by Sarah Pichelli. I'd completely forgotten that. So it's like absolutely fucking gorgeous.
Yeah,
like,
they are.
They have her drawing the whole, like, all the Black Cat sequences for that. So like it's kind of funny to, like, because everyone, and I mean, like, the thing that she's most significant and understandably so known for with Spider-Man is the, introducing Miles in that first arc of Ultimate Comics Spider-Man with Miles Morales. But she was working on Peter, on Spider-Man a bit before that.
Yeah.
A little tidbit I realized earlier today.
But so moving on from that whole mess, Ultimatum,
was a thing.
It was a thing where everybody decided, let's do cannibalism.
Yeah.
Let's try that out and see how that works.
Oh, at least go more full hog with it.
Yeah. And then Magneto's like, and then all the X-Men are just like, we're just gonna fucking kill each other and not feel any remorse about it.
Yep.
Magneto kills Xavier, no remorse. There's no actual
the X-Men die in a completely unprovoked attack.
Someone talked about this. I don't remember which video it was, but someone said, like, pointing out, like, it's called Ultimatum, but nobody makes an ultimatum.
Linkara in his review of Ultimatum.
Yeah. It's so weird. Like, why call it Ultimatum?
Just the ultimate.
Yeah. It's weird, and I thought I actually liked Peter's side of Ultimatum because it was just him trying to save as many people as possible.
Yeah, like the time stuff for that that they did for Spider-Man itself was actually pretty good.
Yeah, because that was essentially his last volume before the Ultimate Comics were rebranded.
Yeah.
And like, if this was how Peter was, for a long time I thought this was how Peter died. And then, like, and I was like, well, that's a shitty end to Peter, to Ultimate Peter, because I cared about him, and I wasn't keeping up with the comics. And then I saw that they were still going on, and I was like, oh, okay. And then Death of Spider-Man happened, and I'm like, you just killed him 2 years ago. Why are you doing it again? But
well, I mean, because like the original thing behind Ultimatum is that was supposed to be what was going to happen.
Yeah, that was supposed to be the death of
they were going to relaunch the Ultimate Universe with Ultimatum ending with a reboot. And I was like, but all the characters that had died would not be introduced. So you'd have the X-Men forming without Xavier. You'd have and also not having Wolverine there. You'd have and that presumably is where Miles would have, or at least some early form of him would have been introduced as Spider-Man instead of Peter. So you'd have a version of Spider-Man, like a Miles Morales version of Spider-Man who basically became Spider-Man completely without the influence of Peter Parker.
Yeah, and
which is interesting to think about, like what that might have entailed.
I think it was just like, this is where like Ultimate comics were just supposed to end entirely,
Mm-hmm.
without like a reboot. But like as an ending to
Mm-hmm.
this entire universe that a lot of people are invested in, it's just a big middle finger. Like,
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
like it's just like here's Doctor Strange losing to Dormammu. Here's
Mm-hmm.
here's
Nightcrawler
Magneto
dying as a
killing.
result of a
Yeah.
giant wave, not even getting a chance to be all heroic or anything. He just literally just gets smacked dead. Although admittedly,
Oh.
Ultimate Nightcrawler is a homophobe, so
Yeah, and
inferior
Daredevil
to the-
too. But
Mhm.
Daredevil was kind of an asshole in the Ultimate Universe.
Yeah,
But
though
still,
I did really enjoy the Ultimate Knights arc. That's honestly one of my favorite Ultimate Spider-Man arcs.
yeah. That's just like, and then and then Janet being cannibalized
Yeah,
by and then Hank Pym picking the Blob up and eating him.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just but Ultimatum was a mistake, and failing to adapt the game, like it was the same pretty much until like the last third or quarter, where the Avengers got involved. Well, the Ultimates got involved, and the suit was like trying to consume. It's been a while since I read this one. I don't have the trade for it, but it was like the suit was on Peter.
Oh
and
yeah,
then,
the weird thing, the War of the Symbiotes one. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to reread it recently. Like,
and then like
it's nice to see, like, because by this point, Bagley had left the book and made Amidon as the artist, who is like draws some really gorgeous. Stuff. But yeah, like basically, like the Venom and the Carnage symbiotes merge and end up both kind of possessing Peter at one point, and then
they spit out Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
And like, was it that Gwen? Was it that? I don't think it was that this Gwen was a clone. It was like, okay,
she's a molecular copy, is basically, but an exact one. There's no difference on any definable genetic level. Is how. Did I get the 20 here? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so well, we got to wrap this up quickly, but Death of Spider-Man, which is what we're jumping to now, because that was all of our lows on the Death of Spider-Man. I thought it was a much better ending to Peter than Ultimatum was.
Oh yeah, it's like I would still consider it the gold standard for at least like within the last few years for like any kind of like death of kind of storyline for a character.
Yeah. I do have some issues with it because wasn't it tying into another storyline that was going on with it?
It might have tied into something going on with Ultimates, considering the fact that they don't have the Ultimates present. But
just because I remember there was like a war going on between like Cap and Nick Fury. That's what I remember.
Might have been, but like I honestly, it doesn't really bother me that much since it basically meant that all the other characters that Peter could have relied on to help him with dealing with the Ultimate Six, the same way they did the first time they kind of all teamed up together.
They were all
way back in Volume 9.
gone,
basically, is like now Peter doesn't have that. He's pretty much entirely on his own because like also like Bobby and Bobby, Drake, Iceman, and Human Torch, who basically come to live with Peter just a couple story arcs beforehand, making the Aunt May, Peter Parker or like Parker household halfway, super halfway house, which is amazing and fun.
Did Johnny join the household because this is when like Reed Richards? But like, was it because of Reed Richards becoming the Maker, or was this like, or was that after?
I mean, I'd lost track of Ultimate Fantastic Four by that point, but basically the group had kind of pretty much completely broken up.
Yeah.
Or Sue had gone off somewhere, but like Johnny couldn't really follow her, but because Johnny hadn't developed any real life skills, he didn't have anywhere to go.
Yeah.
And then like because of all the awful shit that happened to mutants in the wake of Ultimatum and the reveal that mutation within the Ultimate Universe wasn't actually like just the natural evolutionary thing, but was actually like the result of like an actual like airborne genetic thing that some guy had made in the 50s out of a stupid retcon that the Ultimate Universe established there.
That's weird.
It basically as a result of that, mutants were even further persecuted, so Bobby was on the run and ends up coming into his home. But basically, like, briefly, Bobby, I think in Death of Spider-Man, Bobby and, like, Johnny briefly kind of try to help to team up, but they also get taken out of the equation pretty quick. But the story itself is really gorgeous. The one other nice touch is that Mark Bagley came back to draw the whole thing.
Oh yeah, that's right. Right. I don't think he was using like that same art style that he was using for like the first run of Ultimate Spider-Man, though.
Yeah, like
which I do kind of miss.
I think it's more like it might be done like digital or something because like there were like at least the coloring might have been digital because it's a lot like cleaner.
Yeah, and I did kind of miss that reading it.
Yeah, I mean, although I noticed it kind of tended to slide a little bit more towards like the like mid to late teen stuff with Ultimate Spider-Man. So
Yeah, but
Like it was something that his art was slowly doing, but it's much more prominent
yeah.
here than the arts. But it still looks absolutely gorgeous. Like
Oh yeah, definitely.
that
But
last moment after Peter's finally taken down Norman and whatnot, and is like just kind of, you know, kind of collapsing as he's like, basically, I did it. I saved you.
and then
like, you know,
he died, and then MJ held him, and that, like
with May and Gwen
yeah,
kind of like grabbing each other, and I think like it's Bobby like sitting next, like kneeling next to him, and then
yeah,
like the slow panel of like Norman smiling
yeah,
as
yeah.
he's burning.
It's yeah, it like Norman in this I don't get because it seems like they address later when Peter comes back. Spoiler alert. Which was
and Norman does too.
yeah that Peter and Norman
Norman.
are both immortal because they both have the Oz in them, and Oz makes you immortal apparently, which is dumb, and I hate that.
Although they kind of implied by the tail ending of that with the ultimate Maria Hill like shooting Norman clean through the head with a bullet, like before he can, as he's unconscious after a venom blast, and then sets his body on fire, basically burning it before it can actually start regenerating because of the Oz when he regains consciousness. So I think technically he does die.
That's good at least then, but like,
although it never answers how Peter came back, like who exactly was who grabbed his body, why they were doing what they were doing. It never explains that.
Yeah,
because like the next arc after goes into a Hydra thing because Peter at the tail end of that with issue 7 kind of goes off with MJ.
Yeah, they just run away from home.
Yeah, and I just to be honest, and I like to think that if the in the weird rebooted Ultimate Universe out there that they're still together.
I think they are because in that page that they I forgot what it was at, but it was what it was in. But it showed like Peter and like he was talking to MJ through like a wrist device or something. But anyway, like Norman in this whole thing, I don't get because he's just in a prison, and then he just decides, you know what, I feel like breaking out today, and then he just turns into Goblin, and it's like, well, if he could do that,
it's very inconsistent how his powers work in regards to dampening because it always seems like he can turn them back on.
Yeah,
like, it's the same thing happened when they bring him back in the Miles Morales Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah,
where like they're transporting him through a prison truck after Shield falls, and they basically have to relocate him to a regular federal prison. But like he's still like in power dampeners one up, but then he just suddenly like, you're all gonna burn, and then boom, and like just suddenly he's a goblin again.
Yeah, and he gathers the Sinister Six, and then Otto's just like, you know what, I'm kind of done with this shit.
Yeah,
I
found like that's one thing that was weird, but also kind of fascinating at the same time for in the Ultimate Universe's Otto and Norman's relationship.
Yeah.
I always like when the two have like a linked personal history between the two of them, like with Spectacular Spider-Man or even the Spider-Man PS4 game.
Oh yeah, I love that dynamic between them, and I look forward to seeing how that develops because if they team up in the third game, that would be the chef's kiss of
definitely
beauty. But anyway, I'd like that much better than them doing Superior Spider-Man at least because. I don't want that to happen in the game, to be honest. But anyway, well, it would work if he was the villain and Miles was the hero. That would work. But not if you had to play as Otto, because that would just But anyway, so Norman just kills Otto because Otto wasn't going to comply. And their goal through this thing is that they just want to kill Peter and his family, which that he needs to save his family, but like I feel like there had to have been something more important with gathering the Sinister Six together, because Norman could just do it himself. I mean, the Sinister Six get taken care of. Aunt May kills Electro. She shoots him through the chest. She kills him. So like Norman could have just done it himself if he wanted to kill Peter and his family, but I don't know. I mean, Peter died in the best way because he got shot saving. He fought through the pain to go save his family. He got like blown up by a truck, and but it was that bullet that still killed him, and he kept fighting until he knew that his family was safe.
Yep,
and that is Peter Parker
to a nutshell. Yeah,
100%. But yeah. So. Do you have any last thoughts?
No, I think you kind of covered it pretty much more or less.
Yeah. I love this comic. I really do, and I will forever love it, despite its flaws.
And all, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad that the MCU is taking some inspiration from it with Peter and Nick.
Yep.
Because that duo has been something I've been waiting to see for years. I've been waiting years to see that in film. And I'm so happy that Nick Fury is a main character in Far From Home. Because I have been... ever since Spidey was in the MCU, I'm like, okay, but when is he going to meet Nick Fury? That was my thing. So people were like, sorry, when is he going to meet Captain America? When's he going to meet Iron Man? I'm like, when's he going to meet Nick Fury? That's what I'm waiting for. And now they're delivering it. And I'm so happy. But, yeah, so... Any final thoughts, once again?
Not that I can think of. Just, if you guys are curious, do check out the series. It should all be on Comixology. The trades might be a little hard to find if you're trying to find it in print. Single issues would be even harder, I'd imagine. But
yeah,
it's definitely worth a read in some capacity, to read in whichever way you can.
You can find they have omnibus trades that collect multiple trades into one book, so you can get those too. Probably for cheaper than getting a lot of trades, but it depends on which one you want to collect, I guess. So that is all the time we have today. This one was a bit of a longer one, but I think it was good. Yeah, I had a lot of fun. My jaw hurts. My jaw hurts a crap ton. But that's just because I don't get enough protein, and my muscles hurt after using them for like 5 minutes. I am terrible, but anyway. I am Alec once again. You can follow me on Twitter at the Alec Thorne. You can follow On Comics Ground, which is at On Comics Ground. You can follow our podcast Twitter page, which is at LOTE_podcast. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel of On Comics Ground. You can give us a like down below, comment, tell us what you thought of the episode, what you want us to talk about in the future.
Tell us what your favorite Ultimate Spider-Man arc is, or favorite character.
Tell us your memories of Ultimate Spider-Man, what your favorite character was, what your favorite issue was, what your favorite. Just please give us your feedback. We'd really appreciate it. And we will have some news coming in the coming days. Once again, we announced this on Twitter, but this will be a bi-weekly podcast from now on because we think it's the best way to ensure quality. And we're still improving. We're still finding our stride. But we thank all of you who are watching for being and listening, for bearing with us and watching and interacting with us. We really appreciate it. So that's my piece. What do you have else to say, Ian?
No, I think you pretty much wrap it up. If you guys want to check me out, probably could have phrased that better. If you want to, see more of my goofy nonsense, comic-wise or elsewise, I'm on Twitter at CalLData and Instagram at ImanCameron. Check out oncomicaround.com. Check out the more stuff on the YouTube channel here. Check out our Facebook page. Give us a like there and share it with friends. Same with Twitter and Facebook, or with the Twitter and the YouTube page and whatnot, and just have fun.
Yeah, what he said. I've made that joke like 10 times, and it's not funny. It's not fucking funny. I need to stop that. But
it might be someday.
Maybe I'll find better jokes one day. A better tick to repeat so many times and make a T-shirt out of it and sell merch of it. We should do that one day. But anyway, yeah, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we will see you guys later. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Take care.